Welcome to the Best Sports Betting Podcast, where we'll talk about reviews, previews, tips and all things betting related. Brought to you by bestsportsbetting.co.za. Now on to our hosts.
Sports Betting Podcast, episode 44, brought to you by Player Bets, and with me is the king of ball tampering, Simon. Simon, how's it going?
I'm alright, Rob. It wasn't the most action-packed sporting weekend, but it was certainly kept more entertaining with all the ball tampering drama, as you said, in the third test between South Africa and Australia.
So being an experienced ball tamperer, Simon, how are your hands feeling after handling all of that sandpaper? Do you get like workman hands, or do you have to moisturize every day?
I moisturize anyway, Rob. I'm mid-30s as you are, so you know what it's like.
Oh, wow, what a scandal. I mean, we might as well just dive right into that. I was told about it. I didn't actually see it live, and I was getting messages of, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And I thought it was just another kind of run of the mill, stepping on the ball, Stuart Broad special. But I was obviously wrong. Huge scandal.
Yeah, I mean, let's talking about the ban and so on. The first thing that came to mind for me when this whole sort of thing started sort of unraveling was that, in light of this whole saga, can you imagine the outrage if Rabada was actually banned for that test? Because, in light of that light shove of Steve Smith, and then the Australians got caught up in this whole scandal. I mean, that would have really made the situation far worse for South Africa and made the ICC look terrible. Can you imagine?
Well, I think the ICC are looking pretty bad anyway. But at the same time, I've seen lots of arguments on Twitter and Facebook and, your social media platforms saying that, how can you give them a one-match ban? But that's in the ICC rules. For example, you're a car thief and the law of the country says the maximum term you can get for stealing a car is 5 years. They basically had the book thrown at them. What more do you want the ICC to do?
Absolutely. And I do think that punishment would have been more severe if they had banned Rabada as well, because I think they felt, that they kind of, because they let the Rabada issue go, they kind of had to also not, I mean, I don't think it's an unfair, punishment. I think it's pretty fitting. I think the 100% match fee, if you think about that.
75% for, was it Bancroft?
For Bancroft. But if you think about the fact that's only 25% of the total he will get for the series. So it's actually only a 25% docking because it's 4 tests.
Yeah.
So, it's actually not very much. But, I think at the end of the day, I do think that the punishment is fitting. It'll be interesting to see how, the moods of both teams going into the final test.
Yeah, South Africa definitely with a lot more momentum now.
Oh, sure. And I mean, they are 6-10 favorites, which is very short. But, I obviously had Australia drawn a bet, ticket for this series. So I'm a little bit disappointed with that, but I think that, South Africa have been the better team. I certainly can't complain. So I'm hoping for an Australian win to draw up the series and get my stake back there. But I must say, I think the momentum is with South Africa, as you say, and they will take the series.
Yeah, I don't think that the ticket's going to be around much longer. I think you might as well invite old Bancroft over to take a sandpaper to it because
the nasty part about
this now.
The nasty part about the whole thing from Bancroft's perspective is because he lied straight to the umpire's face, about this mysterious yellow object. And obviously the whole Australian team were hoping they would get away with it, that's really
that's my big issue with this is that there were so many different members of the team involved. I can understand a bowler doing it, and I'm not justifying it, but we see it all the time with, the ball rolling to a bowler in the outfield and he kind of steps on it to stop it and, those kind of things. And it happens a lot, and I'm sure this is not the first time, but I think it's just a collusion between the players and the senior leadership of the team is the big problem here.
Well, I mean, Steve Smith's now been kicked off the captaincy. I can't remember what the IPL team he plays.
It was.
He's no longer captain there. Look, it's going to have long-lasting effects, I do think.
And there have been some comparisons drawn to match fixing scandals, but I can assure you this is nothing like that. The Australians are trying to win the game. They weren't trying to.
Absolutely.
Sandpaper the ball down to lose the game. They wanted to win. So
there's also, I can't remember the player who had the plaster on his hand now as well. Now, obviously, this brings to light now, why did he have that plaster? Did he even have an injury? Because there's also footage of him really rubbing the ball with that plaster. And obviously, a plaster on your hand is going to have a much better effect in terms of roughing up the ball than your skin would. So I can't remember the player now who had the plaster in his hand, the Australian player. So now that's also been brought to light now. I wonder if that was also suspect. I don't see why not. I mean, it probably is.
Yeah, and then some footage has come out of our Bancroft pouring in teaspoons of sugar into his pocket during, I think it was the Ashes series. So,
Oh, really?
yeah. So anyway, but enough about that. Let's move on to the weekend's rugby. Did you manage to catch much Super Rugby this weekend?
I caught 2 games. I caught the Stormers at home against the Reds, and the highlights, I think, of the weekend, the Hurricanes hosting the Highlanders.
Yeah, and that Hurricanes game really surprised me. I thought the Highlanders would have had a solid chance against them, and I didn't expect them to be, I don't want to say blown out, but or blown away, but just completely defeated.
I kind of disagree with you. I mean, I said last week that, the Hurricanes would be the fresher side coming off the bye, and I certainly wasn't going to oppose them, with an extra week's rest. But, I must admit 17 points is quite a margin. And yeah, absolutely. I didn't see such a comfortable win for them there.
Then the Crusaders easing past the Bulls, Rebels smashing the utterly toothless Sharks. The Sharks are looking like such a joke at the moment. Any of those long-term bets are now worrying, but then again, most other South African teams are looking pretty bad too. Other than the Stormers, who are still looking bad, but they're still squeezing out wins.
Let's talk about the weekend quickly, Rob. So you like the 1-12 there. Stormers win by 1-12, and as soon as you mentioned that bet, I liked it immediately. And that was a real nail biter for backers of that bet, because the Stormers got a very fast start. And I almost completely gave up on the bet, as it looked like they were going to hammer the Reds. But the Reds fought back, and 20 minutes to go, they had 4 or 5 chances to score and kill out the game completely. But the Stormers just had so many handling errors right on the line there. and then the Reds had a line out on the Stormers 5-meter line after a brilliant kick. And I thought, oh my word, the Reds are actually going to win this game. I'm going to have no chance of winning the bet. But thankfully the Stormers managed to make it to the hooter. Yeah,
and you said you managed to get quite a nice price on that. Was it 21-10 or just over 2-1?
21-10, yeah, absolutely. Very nice price.
So good price there. Then we have the Chiefs against the Sunwolves, another one I fancied. Chiefs just smashing the Sunwolves as predicted. These quality pedigree teams do put these crappier teams to the sword. Beat them by 50 points. I didn't see it being by that much, but I mean, massive win there. And then the Lions losing to the Jaguars. I think it's now the 3rd time that they've actually lost to them in Argentina. So, it's not looking good for the Lions either. And South African rugby, I mean, you only had the Stormers winning this weekend. Okay, look, you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't like the card. I really didn't like the card last week, but that was the best bet I posted, and yeah, absolutely wrong on that regard.
Yeah, cool. Crazy results. But, looking forward to this weekend's Super Rugby. I mean, it's a much better looking card, I would say. You've got the Chiefs Highlanders. I think that's going to be quite an interesting one. That's probably the best game of the weekend for me. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a very tough one to call. Chiefs are 8-10 favorites there. I think that price looks about right. Obviously they were very impressive last week, and the Highlanders obviously played their first away game last weekend, which is another reason why I didn't necessarily want to get with them against the Hurricanes. But I don't have an opinion on this one. I think this is a very, very tough game to call.
It is a tough game to call. I think it's going to be a great game to watch. I'm not going to be putting a cent down here. I mean, the Chiefs' record against the Landers is not fantastic. Especially at home, it's very back. Actually, Landers have won the last 5. So, history is favoring the visitors. But then again, the Chiefs are coming off a big win, and the Highlanders are coming off a loss. So I won't be touching that one. I do fancy the Chiefs. 8-10 is about right. I wouldn't take any handicap there.
Yeah, there's also the travel factor, of course, for the Chiefs as well, whereas, the Highlanders will be staying in New Zealand. But yeah, I think it's a very tough game.
Japan's just around the road. I mean, it's a 4-hour flight or something like that from New Zealand, maybe a bit longer. So not too bad. Rebels, Hurricanes, I mean, look, the Rebels have been playing pretty well. I think that is taken into account in the handicap. I mean, you're getting 10.5 points. I like the 10.5 points for the Canes there, actually. So that might be where my money is going to be going. I mean, the Rebels are decent. They've had a good start. I know you've been quite harsh on them and been fading them, but I think they're coming up against the actual class team, and they haven't had one all season. Look, they played the Waratahs, who wouldn't call them classy, but probably the best of the sides that they've played, and they were convincingly beaten. So I'm going to go with the Hurricanes here on the handicap 10.5 points.
Yeah, it's another tough card, I must admit. But the one bet I like is the Waratahs to beat the Brumbies, and that's away from home at 8-10. Obviously, both teams won their games in Australia last week, but the Waratahs were really impressive against the Rebels. And I think we've established that the Brumbies shouldn't have actually been underdogs last week against the Sharks, because as you mentioned earlier, they seem to get worse every week. So I don't like generally backing teams away from home in Super Rugby, but especially as a favourite. But I think the Waratahs will have their tails up after last week and come away with a win in Canberra. Yeah.
Well, they are favoured, surprisingly, by what,
Yeah.
2.5 points. I'll take that
Yeah.
over taking the straight win at 7-10, 6-10. So
Yeah.
So
as I said,
stay away from that one, I think.
No, I just think that obviously the Brumbies had a home win last week. Fair enough. As I said, against a very weak Sharks team. So I just think that the Waratahs will have some momentum after that thumping of the Rebels. So I like them at 8-10 there.
Okay, fair enough. And then we have, the crappiest, should I say, New Zealand team against arguably one of the worst South African sides, the Sharks. They're playing away, the Sharks. I don't see things getting any better for them. Neither do the bookmakers. They've set the handicap at a whopping 12.5, which I think is rather high. But, with the Blues, you never really know what you're going to get. They are a quality side on paper. But, I mean, just looking at both sides' Super Rugby season so far, they've got one win between them.
Yeah.
Or two wins between them in 10 games combined. So,
yeah.
But the battle of the losers, really.
No, for me, that's I'm not going to say that that's necessarily out of kilter. I think that price is probably about right, and I think that's probably about right. But I can't lay 12 points for the Blues. No ways. I really can't do that. That's too much.
Yeah. At the same time, I can't take the Sharks plus 12.5 either.
No.
So I might be looking at a sneaky 1-12 play when the Lions come out, which should actually be out already. Come to think of it. For those sort of exotics. And then we have the big one for South Africans, the Bulls versus the Stormers. Bulls haven't been playing too badly. The Stormers are on a decent run. They've got the Stormers as favourites. I think it should be more of a pick'em game. At the moment it's about 2.5. But you can get plus 2.5 on the Bulls. Look, the Bulls are on a 4-game losing streak, but then you look at who they've played. They've been away from home. They lost to the Crusaders, the Chiefs, the Reds, and the Lions. Can you blame them for losing those 4 games? No, especially when 3 of them are away from home.
Absolutely.
Whereas you've got the Stormers who are just bad on the road. They haven't won a road game all season, but they've won at home. So
whenever I think of this fixture, I kind of always remember this game being pick'em. And I mean, honestly, I think over the last 4 seasons, it's kind of been pick'em. And the Stormers, very strong home team, Bulls, very poor away team, but to take the Stormers as a favourite here, I think is very risky. At the moment, I struggle to back the Bulls at home there, but I think that taking the Stormers odds on away from home is a very, very risky prospect.
Yeah, especially at 7-10. It's just it's not the kind of price you want to get involved in. And once again, I'm going to have a look at the 1-12 market there for the Bulls, because I think you'll get a cracking price on that. I mean, if you're getting 12-10, you're probably looking over 2-1 for the 1-12.
Yeah, there's no ways they're going to thump the Stormers.
No,
I mean, I really can't see that happening. No.
It'll be a close fought game. So, I'm not really taking a strong position on that, but that is one that does jump to mind. And then we've got one on Easter Sunday, which is Lions Crusaders. So it's nice to have some rugby on at 2:30 on a Sunday. Get your pie on, get your beers out, and watch what would have been a good game of rugby. But unfortunately, the Lions just not really.
How the tide has turned.
From the glory boys of South Africa to just struggling, and the market shows that you can get them at 5.5 point dogs, 7 point dogs in places. So I would keep the Crusaders there as a somewhat of a banker for my accumulators at 5, 6 to 10. That's the most I'll do with them there. I don't have a position on the game. I don't like the handicap. I'm scared of this Crusader side, but the Lions could rock up. So I think the Crusaders win this one, but I'm not sure if they cover the handicap. Yeah,
you kind of get the feeling for the Lions. This is sort of make it or break it, don't you? Which kind of worries me to back the Crusaders there. But I mean, I think that line is dead on. I mean, why wouldn't you be laying a converted try with the Crusaders? Looking at the two teams at the moment.
Yeah, and I think if I were to take a position, it would probably be on the overs there. I think there's going to be quite a few points scored in that game. I haven't seen any quotes for overs. I'm expecting mid-50s. And, anything around mid-50s, I'll take the over. I think there'll be about...
Yeah, and that obviously, that ties nicely into that ties nicely into that WSB promotion, which I see you tweeted earlier.
Yes, for those who haven't seen it, WSB have a promotion that, back a try scorer in a Lions try scorer in the Lions versus Crusaders match, and if he scores a second try, you'll get double your payout. So it's not a first try scorer, it's an anytime try scorer, which is what makes a promotion quite nice. So there should be a few going over the line come Sunday, especially on a Sunday, a bit of an exhibition game if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Talk about exhibition games. I've got a pick for tonight's international football. I know we've been staying away from this, but I'm going to have a look, I had a look at the Germany versus Brazil game. I'm sure you've remembered a couple of those encounters over the year.
Yes.
The most recent one being that 7-1 drubbing that the Germans dished out to them in the World Cup on their home soil. So I'm going to be going with over 2.5 goals here. And, it's a friendly. The Germans have been scoring for fun. They haven't been taking things too seriously. It's just a game that screams over 2.5 goals. And the bookmakers have it priced up quite nicely, so you can actually get 8 to 10. So it's basically a pick 'em over under. But It's world number 1, world number 2. I just thought I'd throw that in there. I'm taking over 2.5 goals. And while we're on soccer, let's jump straight into the Premier League, Simon. I know you're probably itching to get stuck into some Premier League.
Yes, yeah. After a week of international friendlies, which, as I said, as we mentioned earlier, was found a bit of a nonsense
week of postponements, or
that's right.
FA Cup, or whatever it was preventing the games from being played.
That's right, yeah. And again, I'm finding value with the minnows, and I'll be backing Brighton on the draw no bet at evens at home to Leicester. Admittedly, Leicester have had a slight resurgence of late, but Brighton still have a top 7 home record, and I don't think they're being respected in the market here. So, I also, for this bet, I also like the fact that Leicester sort of had their hearts broken against Chelsea in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, which was their last chance for silverware, if we're going to be honest. I think that 18 to 10 is a massive price for Brighton at home. So I'll take them on the draw no bet at evens against Leicester. That'll be my best bet in the Premier League. And then I think we should talk a bit about the London derby between Chelsea and Spurs.
Yes, before we get there, I've got a pick for Saturday as well. I'm going with our side, Newcastle, and they're playing against Huddersfield. And I know Huddersfield are your boys when they're playing at home. But, I was having a look at their away record, and it's not fantastic, to be honest. It's not much to write home about. So, whereas Newcastle, a win here almost essentially seals them Premier League. I don't want to say they'll remain
status.
They'll stay in the Premier League. Look, it won't be the golden number, but they are fighting with the likes of Huddersfield, Swansea, Crystal Palace, and that would give them quite a nice points gap, move them up to 35 points, and they should be able to eke out a couple points in their remaining 7 games afterwards. And so I'm going to be going with Newcastle there. They've got a pretty good record at home. They haven't lost in their last 6 games at home, whereas Huddersfield haven't been great in their Premier League. I think the last win was against West Brom, who's just utter trash at the moment. So I'm going to be taking Newcastle at 15 to 10, probably as my best Premier League bet for the week. And let's move on to the London derby then. What are your thoughts on Chelsea against Spurs?
Yeah, I think Chelsea are 13 to 10 favourites here, which looks about right to me. But I think Spurs have proved they are the superior side. Not just if you look at the log, but I mean, it's sort of the eye test, So I'm not wild on this game, but if I was going to have a bet on this game at all, it'll definitely be a half stake on Spurs just to win the match. I don't see much value in the draw no bet. To be honest, I'd rather just take half a unit on them to win the match at 22 to 10. Spurs have only lost 4 out of their last 20 away games in all competitions, which is quite an incredible record. It really is. 4 out of 20 away games.
Incredible. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I just think that, just take them for a small stake to win the game outright. I'm not really interested in keeping the draw inside here. So yeah, it's not a strong bet of mine, but that's certainly a lean.
Okay, well, one of my leans is under 2.5 goals here. I think it's going to be one of those typical big clashes, 1-1, 1-0, 0-0. One of those kind of clashes. Even though the history between the sides almost goes against that. I think most of the last few meetings have actually had goals in them. But these are very different sides to what they were, say, a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And Chelsea are kind of fighting for that fourth spot that Spurs are in. So it's not really one that they can afford to lose. Whereas if Tottenham were to win this one, they'd clear quite a nice gap. But I think it would then be an 8-point gap between them and Chelsea. So, I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think there's going to be too many goals. So I fancy the unders there.
Yeah, look, I mean, Spurs defense has been top draw as well this season. And, Chelsea haven't been scoring at home like they were last season. So I think unders is a good look there for sure.
All right, great. And you wanted to chat about some tennis, Simon? Miami Open, what caught your eye?
Yeah, I'm actually going there for my best bet, but I just want to talk quickly about the tournament because it's been very interesting for me and always a happy hunting ground. I love tennis and it's definitely my most profitable sport. But it's been a very interesting tournament overall because so many of the top seeds have been knocked out. I mean, I can't remember a tournament where you got Federer.
No Federer.
You got Federer. Okay, so Murray and Wawrinka didn't play. They didn't enter, but Federer, Djokovic, Nishikori, Dimitrov, Thiem. I mean, I could go on. They all didn't play or make the quarterfinals. So it's been a great tournament for backing underdogs. And I think Del Potro is now the most certainly the worthy favorite at 5-2. And if he actually lands this title, it'll be his third in a row, which is quite something for a player who's only returned to the ATP circuit about a year ago. And then in the ladies, there is one outsider which I think is a very, very good look at 12-10, and 12-1, and that's Ostapenko. And I mean, she's not without a chance. Put it that way. I mean, she's definitely capable of beating all the remaining players in the draw. She's won a Grand Slam already before, which was her first tournament, believe it or not, Roland Garros on her first attempt. So I think 12-1 on Ostapenko is a really, really good outside chance for the ladies.
All right, great. So some nice inside knowledge there not inside knowledge, but some nice analysis there from Simon. No backing of Mr. Kevin Anderson? You're steering away from the big hitting South African?
Look, I think, he's got Kashanov next. I think he should win that match. I don't know. Look, to be honest, since he's made the top 10, he's kind of
crap. He's been
a bit of a letdown, yeah, I must say. I've made more money fading him generally than backing him because I think the market actually overvalues him slightly now. And he's one of those players, of course, he's a serve-oriented player, and if his serve is slightly off, he immediately is playing on the back foot. So he also double faults a hell of a lot, obviously being a big server. So yeah, he's not a player I'd tend to like backing.
Okay, so best bets for the week, Simon.
Okay, well, I'm going to the Miami Masters again, and I'm going to take Juan Martín del Potro to win the title at 23-10. But what I would advise listeners to do with this bet is to take him each way. Okay, so if you take him each way, so if anyone really doesn't know what an each way bet means, is half your stake will go on the win and half will go on the place. So in this instance, if he wins the match in the final, you'll get your full return, you'll get your full win, and if he comes second, you'll actually make a 6% profit. So basically, you'll get your money back plus a tiny bit because the odds are 23-10. So it's a nice bit of insurance to have. So yeah, I'll take Del Potro each way. So obviously, he'll have to either win or lose in the final on Saturday.
Okay, great. And I'm going with Newcastle against Huddersfield. Newcastle to win at 15-20. And then I'm going to be having a small stake, not as quite a best bet, but as a recommended. I'm not going to mention units, because some people can't count the units. And I'm going to be taking Bulls 1-12 against the Stormers just for a small stake.
Nice.
The person who cannot count the units is not Simon. Simon knows what units are. For those that are wondering. But yeah.
Yeah.
Simon, thanks for joining me, and we'll have a chat about units and whatnot in another show. And hopefully we can get some more winners. We've had a pretty good run of late. So
we have. Thank you, Rob.
Let's hope it keeps going. All right, guys, have a good one. Simon, chat to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Rob.
Welcome to the Best Sports Betting Podcast, where we'll talk about reviews, previews, tips, and all things betting related. Brought to you by bestsportsbetting.co.za. Now, on to our hosts.